tackle something big that keeps you up at night. When that happens, you automatically get the resilience because then it becomes a purpose, it becomes a mission, it becomes much more than getting your name in the front pages or whatever. Cell and gene therapies globally, most of them are getting sold for $300,000, $400,000 and beyond for a single injection. If you have the eye, you need $1 million for both eyes.
So what is your path to affordability there? Because what I'm understanding is that your clinical trials also taken a lot of money.
What I call the top 0.01%.
That's where the purpose comes in.
Exactly. So the purpose was to democratize access to what I call the bottom 99.9% of population. Because at that kind of prices, it's not even the top 1% who can afford it. It's only the 0.01% who can afford it.
So where are you on that journey of seeing that the trials are coming through successfully?
Our flagship product is in phase 2 trials for dry age-related macular degeneration. There is no treatment available in the world which can reverse vision loss, which happens due to dry AMD. Said, I did not see my grandkid for the last 10-15 years. Now I've just seen them, right? There's somebody who went back to work because they could not see the scale on their weighing machine. Now I can see it. So those are quality of life changes that have been very heartwarming for us to hear.
So these kind of outcomes can actually make your day. But for companies like yours, I think it requires a different kind of founder to begin with.
So most big pharma companies, they don't do any innovation inside. They buy it from smaller biotechs. So we will start having conversations. So I already have my entrepreneurial hat on and saying, is it worth sort of licensing it out at a fairly large price and calling it a day? Or do we want to create the next global cell and gene therapy company for the world?
Hello and a very warm welcome to everyone. With me is a very interesting guest today. In my sort of downtime here with him, ahead of this conversation, we chatted on various things and I could get a slice of this human being, singularly focused on the passion and the purpose with which he started the enterprise. Beyond 50, but if you see his passion, you actually feel that he is just in his 20s and trying to sort of really patiently look for the outcomes of his organization. Here is a company which is singularly focused on solving incurable, complex diseases for a large population of this country at affordable prices using cell therapy. Please help me welcome Dr. Jogin Desai, the founder of Eyestem.
Thanks, Rija, for having me. I'm very delighted to be here.
Dr. Desai, for the purpose of this conversation, if you could sort of really break down the mission statement to 3 parts. Cell therapy company, solving complex, incurable problems for a large population of this country. So how are these 3 things tied to each other?
Okay. Let's talk about all these 3. I think those 3 are connected to each other. First of all, what we have said from the very start is we will go after diseases that are incurable. So that we want innovation to be in our DNA, right? So we started with that. Then we said that the diseases that we're talking about should have large patient populations so that the impact eventually that we make has to be large. And then we connect it back to the complexity of these diseases, because there are some diseases that are so complex that they do not have a single switch, if you will. That if you flip this switch, the disease goes off and on and so on, right? And those need a more holistic cell replacement. So you lose a certain cell in that particular disease, you have to replace it with a cell. You can't tweak a gene, you can't provide a small molecule and so on. So that's how this entire thing works. So cell therapy, complex diseases, untreatable diseases with large patient populations. So all of this fits into our larger vision of affordability ultimately. And I'll just add one more thing. If you look at cell and gene therapies globally, most of them are getting sold for $300,000, $400,000 and beyond for a single injection. If you have the eye, you need $1 million for both eyes. This is not scalable, not just for India, but for anybody else. I would argue that especially in today's day, where there are so many regional differences and so on, it is very important for India to have its own solutions, because this is extremely key for us to have a healthier population going on.
Talking about the affordability segment, you said the kind of cost and the pricing elsewhere in the world is humongous. for a country like ours, where healthcare costs are already so high, right? We are talking about a middle class population here
Yes.
and a large swaths of people whom
Yes.
you want to impact.
Right.
So, what is your path to affordability there? Because what I'm understanding is that your clinical trials also taken a lot of money.
What we did is we embedded what we call frugal innovation in the DNA of the company. So the founders, all three founders, sit in a very, very small space together, and so on and so forth. And we have kept the operating costs very low from day one.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, there is only so much you can do because the clinical trials do have a cost. So when we started making products, one of the criteria for selecting the diseases was, can we make this product at scale in the lab? Can we create 1 billion cells out of it versus 100 million cells out of it, right? Because if you scale it to 1 billion cells, your cost comes back by 1/10. So whenever we created protocols to create cells, that was also part of the frugal innovation mindset embedded, that we can't have more than a certain, because otherwise we'll have beautiful science, we'll have great papers, we'll have great presentations, but we'll not be able to make the impact beyond what I call the top 0.01%.
That's where the purpose comes in.
Yes, exactly. So the purpose was to democratize access to what I call the bottom 99.9% of populations. Because at that kind of prices, it's not even the top 1% who can afford it. It's only the 0.01% who can afford. There is a sickle cell disease therapy in the US which costs $2.2 million a shot. Now, sickle cell anemia is present in Adivasis in India. How are you? There's no point in even having a conversation at those kind of prices, right? So that's where the therapies that we're developing have had I don't think it's not one switch that we've said that, oh, now we're affordable.
True.
Every single decision we make goes through that eventual affordability filter, so that by the time we come out near the trial, it doesn't surprise us.
So these kind of outcomes can actually make your day, like literally.
Significantly more than any fundraising, any valuation, any award. These are the things that we live for.
But tell me one thing, Dr. Desai, that when we speak to other technology founders, for them, speed is the competitive advantage.
Yes.
Like simple. We'll start today, we'll take the product, sell it in North America, US, Europe, expansion. You know the playbook, right? But for companies like yours, I think it requires a different kind of founder to begin with. The mettle, the resilience. There must have also been points because you are in the journey of experimentation and constant trial and error when the outcomes need not be those that you expected. When there have been huge setbacks. So what is it to give to the team to say that, no, we are not quitters, we will keep going into it?
See, I've heard, this is not my quote, but I heard it from somebody else who is a very dear friend. And said that if you want to tackle something big, there are lots of big problems to tackle in the world. There's no shortage of issues. Tackle something big that keeps you up at night. And then when that happens, you automatically get the resilience. Because then it becomes a purpose, it becomes a mission. It becomes much more than getting your name in the front pages or whatever. And I think that becomes extremely important. How do you tackle what matters to you, right? I've got friends who tackle waste management because that's what speaks to them, right? I've got friends who tackle something else. So it's not, I'm not talking about a particular problem. Just for you as a person, what do you connect to most? And we have to think about it. It takes time to sort of listen to yourself and figure out exactly what matters. But once that clicks, that is what creates the resilience to go through the ups and downs, because there will be severe ups and downs. We are among 3 companies racing towards a cure in the entire world right now. So if it was so easy, a lot of other people would have done it, right? So there will be ups and downs, but you just have to accept it as part of life. And as long as there is data, you learn from the data, and you have to dispassionately move on. That's how.
So there were times where it was extremely low moments.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Several times there were I remember. So we were awarded the Economic Times Startup of the Year in 23, something like that. Yeah. And I remember around that time when we were going to get the award and on the big stage and all of that, we got some animal data which was completely different from what we expected, right? So none of us were in a mood to go and accept the award, because all we were thinking of was why this has happened, why did this happen, right? So those things will continue happening, and then you have to take a deep breath. This is where mentors, advisors also become very important. So we've been very fortunate that our investors, Dr. Ramesh, for example, he's the first one you would call when something like this happens. Say this happened, and we talk through, and sometimes just the process of talking through somebody who is supportive, you need that, because it's otherwise it becomes a very lonely journey, right? And then you talk through to our mentors, you talk through, the founders come together in a room and talk through, and slowly you start getting the mental resilience to say, okay, it is what it is, here's how you're going to make it better.
So the passion and purpose is really coming through Dr. Desai, and there's no deviation from that at any cost that you will sort of allow. So you're very, very clear about that.
Yeah, otherwise there's no point. No, otherwise there are lots of other nice ways to make money. I mean, there's a reason why we got in here.
Absolutely. We spoke about the product development, how you started. What about the talent, Dr. Desai? Do you think there's enough in this country which can actually take you through this journey?
India has a massive amount of talent in this space. It needs focus, it needs alignment. The whole ecosystem is such that scientists are chronically underpaid.
And hugely underrated.
Underrated, yeah. And absolutely. Because, and they also have to learn communication skills to tell others what they're doing, because that is also a problem, right? Because they're in their own silo of, every scientist will congratulate the scientist next to them, but I think they have to make more of an effort to communicate to the outside world what they're doing. We are very fortunate to have some of the most passionate people that ever worked, right? The people who do not need to be monitored on when they come and when they go and all that sort of stuff. People who are on autopilot, where they know what they're supposed to do. People who are loyal to the company but not to me, and I think that is very important, right? Because I don't need people who are loyal to me. I need people who are loyal to the company, which means that if I am wrong, somebody will tell me in my office and say, here's why you're wrong, because this is what the company will need to do. And that culture is something we're very fortunate to have. Even on the other side, the surgeons, I mean, the talent in the country for retina surgery is incredible. It is, I would rate it the best in the world, not even, and there's nobody in close second, that kind of talent. So yeah, I think both of these are incredible ecosystems that we are hopefully, we are really, really benefiting from.
And how is the founding team sort of suitable for this kind of purpose and mission, you think? Yeah. How three of you sort of gotten together?
So there are 4 people who started.
Yeah.
Rajni, Rajashi, myself, and Dhruv Sirin. Dhruv lives in California and runs in Cedar Sinai biomanufacturing center. And the 4 of us started. In the 3 of us now have taken that from 2016 on to now, and Dhruv is still very much engaged with us as a co-founder. Now, the good thing about this is everybody brings in a very different skill set. So I bring in the entrepreneurial, product development, doing this kind of interviews, face of the company kind of thing. Rajani brings in the subretinal surgery, PhD in, she's finished her retina fellowship, then did another fellowship, then did a PhD in retinal dystrophy and that sort of thing. So very brings in a completely different, right, that thing, sub expertise that none of us have. And Rajesh brings in the cell biology expertise, when how to create the product. And the magic happens when all of us talk together, right? Because he will say, I can create this cell. And I will say, well, maybe I can use this cell as a business model. And she'll say, well, no, but I can't deliver this cell. Then you don't have it. It's only when all 3 of us say yes, that is when science becomes product.
So, Dr. Desai, we spoke about so many opportunities and the pot of gold, which is becoming much more clearer and visible now through this conversation. That's very imminent. And sort of by the end of 2026, we're already seeing, right? You already begun conversations with pharma companies on licensing the product. Your 2026 trials in the US are on the way. So a lot of things are looking much clearer. Immediate challenges, if you were to tell me that, Shrija, these are 2 near-term challenges and perhaps 2 long-term challenges, what would those be for the journey of Eyestem?
The immediate challenges would be execution. right? We need to make sure that we execute on our 26 goals. So the usual stuff, discipline, focus, so on and so forth. They are not new challenges, but sometimes, like when you get your phase 2 approval, you sort of let your hair down a bit. But there's you can't afford it. The point is, in this business, you cannot afford to do that. You have to always, like literally, we got day before yesterday, we got our approval, and yesterday we spent the entire day figuring out the next challenge.
Congratulations.
So yeah, thank you. So not taking a breath is very important, unfortunately, in our business. You have to continue that. The long-term challenge is we want to be a global cell and gene therapy player coming out of India. And how to finance something, such a vision that is so bold. Because now, just to give you a sense of the way life science works, our competitor is Roche, and Roche did a deal with an Israeli company to license their technology for about $670 million. It's all public information. So that's the kind of deals that happen. The current version of the Israeli company, which is in the US, has an operating expense of about $20 million a year.
That's it.
No, we have an operating expense of $1.5 million.
Oh God.
Right? So
It's a
how do you keep
fraction.
competing? How do you keep competing? And because frugal innovation only matters if there is innovation. Just being frugal does not make any sense, right? So how do you keep competing at a fraction of the cost? That will continue to be a challenge for us, and we're happy to take that on.
But don't you think that with a purpose like this, you can also involve the government from a grant perspective? If you have this kind of an ambition of company coming out of India, solving for a global cause.
Yes. So recently, we are very optimistic about the new Research and Development Innovation Fund that the government has started. I think it is an amazing initiative. We have heard the DST secretary, he came to Bangalore and he talked about it. It is fantastic. I think it is, if it manages to do 1/3 of what it is purporting to do, India will be transformed. So we are very optimistic about that, and we'll certainly participate in as and when we can.
So, Dr. Desai, my last question to you, and I think it's been such a beautiful and compelling conversation. Policy intervention, a company like yours, which is really on the right path right now, and you have really successfully shown to the world from your clinical trials also that you're right there. Your conversation with the government on how we can steadfast more companies like this coming out of India, two key interventions from a policy perspective.
The first intervention would be to decrease the regulatory timeline to get approvals. This is something that is, it takes irrespective of how, what kind of product, so on and so forth, it would take about 6 months to get an approval, which is too large. If you're a startup, you have 18 months of OPEX. You can't afford to then twiddle your thumbs while the approval comes in. That is a very big thing that we need to get it down to less than 2 months somehow. And I think we are also seeing what China is doing. For example, China has a policy that after phase 1, which we have completed, if we were in China, we would be about to sell. They have certain zones where you can actually sell your product. After phase 1, where they're zones where they're monitored and so on and so forth, but you can actually sell. So you can get commercial revenue much faster, and then you need less money to move forward and all of that. So those are some innovative things that we will have to do if we want to have much. We need 100 Eyestems in this country, and then then the whole innovation index of the country will come up. So one is regulatory, certainly, and the other, which I think the RDI fund is doing much more than what I anticipated. So I think if you can fix the regulatory challenge, everything else should be okay.
Before I get into the rapid fire, I have to ask you one thing, Dr. Desai, that the innovation index that you spoke about, there was this beautiful example in the book of Elon Musk, done by a journalist called Ashley Vance, where he said that the most innovative years were perhaps the 1930s. And he actually drew a tree and said that we are in the Huebner's research of declining innovation because perhaps the aeroplanes.
Absolutely.
And those were the time where we got the best innovation. And now in the name of innovation, we got Twitter,
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
30 words.
I agree.
Flying cars.
We wanted flying cars, we got the 30 words.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So do you think that where exactly are we on the innovation life cycle?
There is a certain truth to that there is a maximizing, return in certain areas of innovation, right? That how much do you do it? But in biology, for example, in biology, life sciences, we're just starting to get a understanding of the human body. It is so complex that I think the next 20 years will unlock biological secrets, which I think we're living in the golden age of biology, in my view. So this is where the innovation will come from. How to care for an aging population without them, while making sure that they're healthy. How to cure all these diseases that never popped up because people never used to live that long. Right? So all these things will come up, and so people who are at the intersection of biology and entrepreneurship. Of course, it's my biased view because that's how I come from. But I think this is an amazing field to be in right now.
Doctor, in the entire conversation today, we have not touched upon the elephant in the room, which is artificial intelligence. Is that a friend, enemy, frenemy? Does it have any impact on companies like yours?
It is an enabler for us. So you would be able to do statistics, you would be able to do a lot of these things that you would typically ask somebody else to do, that you could do it yourself. So certainly it is that way. It helps you move things a little bit fast, but not a lot of fast, because you cannot, the trial is a trial. You can't really change the trial. We've heard a lot of things about people who say, I have discovered a new drug with AI, which is stupid, honestly. Because there are lots of druggable targets and a lot of drugs that are sitting on the shelves today, which can't be taken to clinical trials. Having one more drug is not going to help. What you need in AI is a very deep understanding of biology. Then you can ask the AI to, you can use the AI as an enabler. But to say that AI will take over is, at least for our ecosystem, there are some things that we still are going to remain the same.
Okay, Dr. Desai, it's time for the rapid fire now. I have to put you on a hot seat.
Sure.
If you have to name one company besides yours, which you're overawed with, what would that be?
It's an easy answer, but what Elon Musk does is just amazing. With the bandwidth that he has, absolutely amazing.
Okay, the biggest fad in technology right now
is that AI will solve everything. Very.
Okay, if you were to go back in time, was it something that you would want to change about the Eyestem trajectory?
Oh, none. We're loving it. Of course, there are some things that you would have done differently, made mistakes, all that. But in the larger scheme of things, I think if we had avoided those, we would have probably made some other mistakes. So no, I think we've done all we can.
What will be your advice to two young startup founders starting out, say in the early 20s, early 30s, venturing into the biospace?
Focus on a problem. I go back to where I started. Focus on a problem that breaks your heart. Or say, I'm in here to make money, which is okay. Now, by the way, the problem that breaks your heart will also make money. It will make probably much more money than anybody else. That's not the point. The point is, you got to be very clear on what you want to do. You can say, I'm here for the next 10 years, I'll do a startup, then I'll exit, and then I'll discover the cause of my life, purpose of my life. That's okay. But don't pretend, because people see through this.
And do you think that in India you will have a lot of listed companies in the biotech space going forward? Can we have those kind of, like we saw huge internet companies getting listed? Yeah. Will we see that wave in India anytime soon?
Possible, because it's now possible to list when you don't have revenues and all that. There are some reforms that have been coming in. If one needs public money, then yes, it is a reasonable way to go, even for companies like Eyestem. I think it's important also to show success in this space, because that will spur more innovations, that will spur the 20 to 30-year-olds to entrepreneurship. For the scientists, most of our scientists, at least when we used to go to college, the scientists are the people who could not get into medical or engineering, right? So I think we have to change that entire thing.
Okay, the last thing, what is your mantra for life? When you sleep in the night, what is it, that one thought that you sort of go to bed with?
What I have to do the next day. We try to, be more peaceful and all that, but that's just how we are.
But like any success mantra that you have, anything that you keep going back to in points of low?
Persistence. It is an incredibly underappreciated thing. Just consistently showing up at a problem that you want to crack through, and saying, I'm here for the next 10 years and I'm not leaving until this is solved. Sometimes that's all that makes a difference. Not your talent, not your money. It's just your inner gut that tells you what to do.
Thank you so much for this very beautiful conversation, Dr. Desai. One can see your persistence and resilience really come through. And I think what sort of fascinated me the most about this conversation was really that the purpose and the profit can definitely be aligned.
Oh, absolutely.
It has to be in sync with each other.
Absolutely.
You don't necessarily have to leave one for the other one.
Yeah, absolutely. But thank you for having me, Shrija. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Desai. So we just heard the founders at Eyestem. Now it is time for the investor perspective. Investor perspective from those investors who actually wrote the first institutional check for Eyestem. Please help me welcome Dr. Ramesh, who is a founding partner at Endiya Partners. Mr. Ramesh, it's my sheer pleasure and privilege to have you at this podcast.
My pleasure too. Yeah.
When we spoke with Dr. Joggin Desai and the team, we really found this sheer passion around cell therapy. But from an investor perspective, I have to ask you and begin this conversation that a lot of money from a VC point of view has gone into this space and not necessarily a fruitful one. So what makes you think that this could really be the bet? What are the signs that you're getting that this one will actually work?
Actually, it's a very tough call actually, because very few companies are there in the world on stem cells which went to market. So, but then as venture capitalists, as investors, we need to spot. Not all information will be available when we make the decision. So when I met initially the Jogin, obviously it's a concept. Maybe a little data is there, the animals. And then I met the other team members. So I could see the commitment from them, at least at that time. And then obviously I spoke to a few of his advisory board members. A couple of them, I think most of them are from the US. One of them is heading NIH and other of them are in the academia. And then you get a sense that stem cells, obviously as a doctor, I know the stem cells have a role, but then thinking or as a concept to getting into the medicine, getting into the clinics is a tough challenge. So when you speak to the team members, when you speak to the advisory board, and in fact, I spoke to one of the partners, pathologist, who did the biopsies also, then you get subtle clues that there's something in this team, in this product which may succeed. And obviously, in stem cells, if they have to work, retina is one place it will work because it's immunoproductive. Normally, if you inject stem cells into any part of the body, your immune cells will go and destroy the cells. So if any stem cell has to be successful, it is more into the brain, more into the retina, where the body's cells can't destroy. So putting all these things together, the team, their commitment, the insights which came from the advisory board members, and the initial data, probably we thought this is the bet. And so at that time when we made the bet, we know it's probably 10 out of 100.
Wow.
And our IC members are so supportive, Dr. Ramesh. And if this is a disease which has 150 million people on the earth have this disease, there's no cure as on today. So if you have to go for it, please go ahead. And that's how we made the bet on Eyestem 5 years ago.
Thank you for that, Dr. Ramesh. I mean, you're not a typical VC. You're a doctor, a cardiologist, and a very seasoned one at that. Your reputation is sort of far-flung. One sort of really knows about it. If you have to tell me, if this company were to go to, say, another VC fund, one can't really fool someone like you. You're seasoned. What are the signals which perhaps the other VC investors could miss, which someone like you cannot?
No, in fact, I should not say that. This will be quite controversial. After we entered, no other VC put money into Eyestem. Many of them have seen the company. When I referred to them, oh, Dr. Ramesh, yes, it looks interesting. The team is very passionate about it, but we don't understand the science actually. So all the investors who came later, either through my connections or Jogin's connections, are from the pharma world actually. And they're able to take a decision in hours time actually. When I took to two Hyderabad based pharmaceutical companies, in 1 hour, they're able to understand the science. Risk is always there, but still they're able to understand the science and make a bet. When we go early into these biotech companies, drug discovery companies, or cell therapy companies, at the stage where we entered animal studies, some data is there. Probably 95% of the times they won't succeed. Even today, as they progress from animal studies to small animal studies to large animal studies, maybe the probability of success may be 30%. When it goes to the phase one studies, probably if the phase one, even after we're able to get the data in phase one, and probably the kind of data we got is fabulous, both from the clinical aspect as well as microscopic or the we call OCT, ocular coherence tomography. And even though we got good information, still the venture capitalists say, "Oh, this is a binary bet. We don't want to do." So that's where I think this will be very quite challenging for a traditional VCs to make a bet, not only in India, even the abroad. So very few VCs can understand the science, and we may be wrong at the end of the day, but even to make a judgmental call is quite challenging. And in fact, even though we did an Eyestem, we see so many early stage drug discovery companies, all of them are PhDs and all that. It's not that easy to make a bet even for us. So we have to do a lot of study, a lot of reference calls to even understand the science and make a call. So it'd be a little tough for ordinary venture capitalists, a journalist, to make a bet on something like stem cell therapies.
Do you see your patience as an investor being tested here? It's very well understood by you.
When we invest, we know it's a 10 years journey, and the ultimate goal is too far away. I can't see the top of the mountain actually. I only know, for example, when animal studies, safety data, toxicity data, tumorogenicity or not, that's the immediate goal. If I pass that, I go into humans. Each stage has own defined metrics. If you ask me tomorrow what will happen to Eyestem 3 years from now, I can't predict actually. I have to complete the phase 2 data in India now, go to the drug regulators for approval, take the same data to FDA and ask them whether they will short circuit some of the paths. Otherwise, if I go to the traditional sense, if I go to FDA, they'll ask me to repeat phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. But there's a possibility they may accept the Indian data. So all these things, while optimistic, will only know at that stage. So I think any early stage investors in deep tech slash life sciences companies, one should have a one should have the patience to even wait for at least 10, 12 years. Nothing will happen in less than 10 years.
10, 12 years, of course, when it's sort of fairly understood. It's been 5 years now. You
That's
have
correct.
invested into Eyestem. What sort of really tells you that the company, even if cautiously optimistic, is on the right track?
I think we are on the right track on all the three stages. Animal data, we didn't find major glitches. Everything went well. The phase 1 data is phenomenal actually. 13 letter improvement at the end of 9 months, 12 months. That's a fabulous actually. In a disease like AMD, age-related macular degeneration, you lose 5-6 letters per year. So that means we are able to show 13 letter improvement. That's in theory almost 18 letter improvement. You must have seen SNL's charts when you go to ophthalmologist, large letters, small letters. So we're able to show 13 letter improvement instead of losing 6 letter improvement. That's a great data. I think that gives us the confidence we're on the right path. Hardly we have seen any complications because of the injections. We have to give this injection into the retina behind the back of the eye. So I think all these things tell us that probably we're on the right path. There are two ways of looking at outcomes in early stage biotech companies. Majority of the times, once we have a decent amount of data, the large pharma companies will out-license it. They pay us an upfront payment and then a royalty and then milestone-based payments. The other thing could be complete acquisition of the company or an acquisition of this particular lead product. My guess is it should be a unicorn in the next 3 years.
Wow, I
Yeah.
mean, so sort of that is kind of signal that you are getting.
Yeah.
Talking about India and the space, life sciences, drug discovery, sir, the entire narrative has always been about generics, sort of cheap sort of drugs being manufactured. Do you think India really has a place in the value chain for being a leader in talking about indigenous drug discovery coming out of India at a very, very high potential scale? Do you think we're on the right path on that one?
Probably not today. Probably in 10 years from now, probably yes. The reason why I said that was an Indian pharmaceutical company took off in late 1980s. And when they saw an opportunity in the generics, and the opportunity in generics is so huge, and every large Indian pharma company went after them. It's $10 billion revenue, $20 billion revenue companies. And now they are making the switch now. While they're focusing on the generics, they're spending a lot of big pharma companies are doing their own in-house research. And I won't be surprised many of these either large companies or startups get into the space. Even if you see the vaccine therapy, for example, whether it's Serum Institute of India or the Shanta Biotech or now the biggest one, Bharat Biotech. So for all practical purposes, that's technically developing like a new drug. Normally, when COVID came in, two Indian companies or three Indian companies, Serum Institute of India, Bharat Biotech, and Biological E came up with their own vaccines from probably zero. That means for all practical purposes, a drug, but you're using cell as the baseline for the drug. So I think we have the talent, and I think because of the business opportunity so strong in the generics, our Indian companies went after that. Not that we don't have the talent. It just probably the focus was on the large opportunity, and now I think most of the Indian companies also working on the drug discovery part.
Thanks for that, Dr. Ramesh. But I have to sort of put you on the hot seat and the rapid fire question. Dr. Joginder Sai told me that he waits for your morning calls. That if there's a call in the morning, it must be from you. So, what is the conversation looking like? It is like a heated argument and
No.
is checking up on him. What is it like, really?
I don't think, I'm sure you spoke to my other partners. We never look ourselves as investors, actually. It's not investor versus founders. We're almost like co-founders. It's always how to solve a problem. Jogin, what are you, are you finding any problem, or how can we solve it together? It's never questioning. It's always finding a problem which together we can solve, which I'm sure Jogin is smart enough, or the rest of the team members, Rajani and Rajeshri. But still, I think it's mostly solving the problems together.
If you were to give one advice to the team, what would that really be?
It's very difficult to give advice to this team because they're very competent. I think it's always the focus. And while we have a second lead product, a third lead product, or the fourth, but the team is so focused on the first product, taking it to the clinic before we focus on that. But otherwise, I think a very well-rounded team. Jogi knows the business aspect, the regulatory aspect. Rajeshri knows how the cells, how to grow the cells. And Dr. Rajani is a clinician, she's a PhD in ophthalmology. And I think, I don't think they need my advice. They're quite competent within themselves.
And so a company like this also has a high altruistic purpose. Like it basically is enabling people to see better. How is it sort of very dear to you personally in terms of the mission, the vision of the company? And do you think if this really happens the way we are envisaging, it can really be a huge sort of benefactor for the country as a whole? What do you think about it?
I think there's a complete agreement between the investors, not just me, the other co-investors and the company. And even if this, once we complete the clinical trials and it may be a large pharma company, the Indian rights will keep it to ourselves. The goal is whether we can sell the drug for maybe $5,000. That itself is very costly for Indian patients, almost like 5 lakh rupees. But in the West, probably it'd be $100,000. I don't think many Indian patients can afford that kind. So I think there's a trust between the investors and the team members that at least for Indian population, we should do at a very decent, affordable price.
Thank you for that, Dr. Ramesh, and giving us a very clear perspective on where your portfolio company Eyestem is headed. Thank you so much for this.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. So, we get a ringside view of Eyestem, a company born from a question that sits at the edge of science and hope. Can we restore sight, not with devices, but with living cells? Eyestem did not choose the easy path. retinal degeneration is complex, progressive, and deeply personal. Instead of incremental solutions, the team chose to work at the cellular level, developing stem cell-derived therapies aimed at repairing damaged retinal tissue. This is not software that can ship in sprints. It is science that demands patience, precision, and proof. The journey has meant navigating clinical pathways, regulatory scrutiny, manufacturing standards, and the emotional weight of working with patients who are running out of options. In deep tech healthcare, credibility is everything. Data matters, process matters, ethics matter. Backing a company like Eyestem requires a very different kind of capital, patient, thesis-driven, and comfortable with long gestation cycles. Investors like Endiya partners recognized that breakthrough biotech cannot be built on quarterly thinking. It demands alignment with founders who are solving for impact measured not just in revenue but in restored life. Eyestem is building for a decade, not a demo day. Because in regenerative medicine, progress is not loud, it is deliberate. And when it works, it changes everything.